I asked the #1 ranked mains for their best tips on how to play their legends, and this is what they said. I Grind Apex again, who's the #1 Ash, says that you should always use your tactical on your portal after you take it. You can ping death boxes anywhere on the map if you pull it up. Make sure to only push with your portal if it is for crazy high ground or if you down someone. In pubs, he usually uses his portal as his escape and never as a way to attack the enemy. He also says you should not have stick drift, so you would have to set up a dead zone for your Ash portal as it is extremely sensitive. Always use your tactical when enemies are behind cover. I Grind Apex again also says that if you hold your tactical, it will increase the speed you throw it at. I also asked Shiv FPS for his input, and this is what he said.
A Bangalore tip. There's a niche thing, but it's kind of like, in my opinion, it's more of like a bug / exploit kind of thing. Where, you know, if the zone is like, you know, behind a team, or sorry, yeah, if you have a smoke in front and then a team behind that smoke and then zone behind them, you know, you can kind of silhouette them through smoke. That's kind of like that's kind of like an exploit bug kind of thing.
As for Bloodhound, X Gaming is currently the #1 Bloodhound player, and he says the following. Always carry ultimate accelerates. Obviously, Bloodhound is at their best when in Beast of the Hunt with their speed increase. This gives you extra scans and just lets you to go beast mode. He also says that he pops his ult a little bit early when going into a fight, so he can see the whole area and get as much info as possible, like seeing enemies that are farther out that could be third partying you, so he knows how to push or change their rotation, especially if they're playing ranked. Aix also says that he pops his ult early, knowing that this will give him extra time in his ult, as he believes you get 3 to 5 seconds extra per knock at the beginning or middle of your ultimate, and up to 15 seconds if you get a knock when you have 5 seconds or less left in Beast of the Hunt. Aix says that if he finishes a fight and he's in ult and he doesn't need loot or needs to heal, he runs around the area scanning and watching around so they don't get shot when looting boxes. He adds that's the most important part of a recon legend, getting as much info as possible. Aix also says you should trust the tracks because they're 100% accurate, and if the tracks go cold, you can just scan or check your surroundings because most people like to rat, especially when it comes to solos that are trying to get away. Aix adds that Apex audio isn't the greatest, so if you hear anything and you have a free scan available, just scan your surroundings. You'd be surprised how many times you pick up random teams or players super close to you without knowing it. Giggle Autumn, the #1 Caustic with over 120,000 kills, says the following. When needing to heal, she uses the gas trap as a cover. It takes 150 damage to break the gas trap, so if you rotate around the trap with the visual clutter and the trap as a shield, you can get a heal off and even get the kill once the enemy needs to reload. She says that when using Caustic ultimate, you want to make sure to be close enough to the enemies to capitalize on the slow and the highlight. Throwing an ult when not close is only good to get a team out from cover. You want to be close to a team and using the ult to get the full potential. She also says putting Caustic gas in bang smoke will allow you to see the enemies even without a digital threat because of Caustic's passive. So always try to use a trap or your ultimate. As for Crypto, this is what Rusty YouTube said. Being able to utilize Crypto's drone is the most important thing for Crypto. Use it as frequently as possible. The main ways to use a drone is to tell when squads are in the area, EMPing the enemy team, and pushing. You want to heal with a bat while in the drone while EMPing yourself when enemies are swarming you. You can also throw the drone out to bait enemies into shooting it, and then you can shoot them for free. And if they don't shoot it down, it's free scans for you. He adds that you should always have 2 alt XLs if you can. 1 is mandatory so you can get an EMP as quick as possible. He also says that Crypto always should have a automatic weapon. He says that he strongly doesn't think that Crypto can get by with Wingman PK like most of the sweaty wraiths. He finds himself running R301 or Flatline as a primary, and Wingman, Shotgun, or Volt/R99 as a secondary. Rusty says that Crypto counters every legend. He can destroy everything, including Jibby's Bubble, Lee's Arm Shield, Watson's abilities, Caustic's Gas Traps, Seer ult, Labs ult, Horizon ult, and keep in mind this only breaks the enemy's ultimates, not your teammates. Marshy Jujiro, who is the #1 Fuse, says the following. Marshy says that he's seen a lot of Fuse tips, and the ones he discovered himself is that Fuse is pretty effective in defense and offense, and you can be quite creative with him. Marshy found that you can use the Knuckle Cluster to not only block out pathways for enemies to push and to apply pressure, but it can also be used to nullify the res sound and your teammates when going for flanks, and in his experience, he has been successful with it 70 to 80% of the time. He suggests practicing skynading in the firing range and arc stars for sticks. He also says that Fuse has pretty decent synergy with Rev Totem because you can stack up nades and be a kamikaze, and unleashing ridiculous pressure. He also adds you can use Fuse's ult with Valk's ult, Vantage's Echo, and the respawn ship, and it can give out a way bigger scan. The higher Diffuser's ult goes, the wider and bigger the scan, and it counters really well against scan legends. It is situational but can make a huge difference. Chet Jubetcha, the #1 Gibraltar player, says the following. He likes to poke at enemies' shields with his AR or SMG and try to trade bullets just enough to the point where he lets them break his arm shield and he's breaking their shields, or he tries to go a little beyond and letting them break his arm shield and his actual shield while he's breaking their shield and taking some health done with it. The goal behind this is if you hit the same amount of shots on each other, the arm shield and the fortified will always leave you with more health than the opponent. So if you pop batteries, you will now be with full health for the next skirmish, and your arm shield will also come back. So assuming there's a few seconds of downtime behind cover, you're already back to peak fighting form, and your opponent is now under their max health, and it is much easier for you to one-mag them on the re-challenge. It is just straight combat efficiency. Chat also says you should not poke out the front of the bubble, as this gives your opponent or opponents your entire body to shoot at. Instead, you want to poke out the side of the bubble, so they have to shoot only one half of your body, which is also covered by your arm shield, making you much harder to hit. This also prevents the opponents from team firing you by you playing tight line of sight with just one enemy at a time, and if both enemies stall or don't let you shoot them, this gives your teammates 12 seconds to come to your aid. He says that the height of the bubble extends up one floor, so a very valid strategy that he rolls people with on more aggressive Jibby plays is bubbling right in front of a zipline or any form of climbable wall, and then zipping or climbing to the next floor with immunity, and also the ability to bubble fight, because there's still plenty of shield on the floor that covers your chest and makes you even more lethal, as it essentially turns the bubble into a head glitch for tall characters. So Kai's the #1 Horizon player with over 127,000 kills says the following.
Most people got confused is that they think that you need to shoot off your lift in order to get value out of it, but that is just not the case most of the times. It is a lot easier to track somebody going up your lift than track somebody on the ground where they have side to side, up and down movement. They can just go wherever. With that being said, with enemies nearby and you need a loot, you need a heal, anything like that, you should pop your lift just in case you get swung or if they flush you out with nades, as you will have an easy escape route. Another tip a lot of Horizon mains don't really use that much is baiting people to go up your lift. Someone going up your lift is the easiest fry in the game, as they do not have Horizon's passive, so they can't strafe as fast as her. Although it is important to save your lift just in case you get in a sticky situation that you need to get yourself out of, it is extremely crucial that you do not die with your lift in your pocket. You are putting your team at an extreme disadvantage if you do so. Horizon mains, remember, going up your lift is a predetermined route, so people are going to be able to track you very easily, easier than you're going to be able to track them on the lift. So make sure if your enemy looks like they know what they're doing, just to be careful. Make sure they're low, make sure your team puts some damage down first, and then lift up on them. Lastly, don't be afraid to take your lift multiple times. Enemies will not expect it, and they will make stupid decisions, such as chasing you up your lift, which will lead to you or your teammates beaming them and resulting in a knock.
Titan Star 1, the #1 Lifeline, with over 164,000 kills on Lifeline, says the following. Lifeline is a character in which you have to think twice before reviving. You have to make sure to do a perfect strategy to avoid basic errors. And if you push with Lifeline, there's no turning back. He says that you should really keep in mind what position you have. You should not expose yourself to open areas without cover, and if you have height, you want to maintain that position and shoot from there. He also says you have to trust your team. If your teammate was down, ask him if he is in a position to revive him. In those cases where you have cover and your teammates don't, ask them to crawl close to you so you can revive them. He also says you want to be the last one on your team to die, because as a Lifeline, it is important to keep the team alive, and in most cases, if Lifeline dies first, this means that your team will die. He says that Lifeline is a legend with low mobility, so you want to focus more on improving your aiming accuracy before your movement. Titan Star also says that you want to bait your teammates. You can revive them while the enemy is following you, so they focus on finishing off your teammates instead, and gives you important seconds to heal up and have a better chance to win. The #1 Mad Maggie Flacco had the following tips to share.
I think like the best tip I just give anyone is just... Oh wait, hold on. I would just master her tactical. That's like her best tool, just using it in like the best scenarios, I guess. Like you can use it offensively, defensively. There's so much you can do with her. And now her ult's like phenomenal, so just always making sure you save your ult for like the right situation.
Abusing R2, the #1 Mirage player, and I think the first player to hit 200,000 kills on one legend, said the following. Be aggressive with Mirage's ultimate. Try to break line of sight on the target that you're pushing. When you use the ultimate, if you have the tactical, use it at the same time while sending the decoy towards the enemy's position. 9 out of 10 times, they will focus the tactical decoy and give you first shot advantage. He says that while reviving teammates, you can actually use your ultimate to create more noise while reviving. If you don't have your ultimate, you can also control your decoy and it will emit the revive noise that can buy you time to get the full res off. He also says to make sure to send your tactical out towards grenades, Watson fences, and fuse ultimates or clusters. Because if your decoy takes damage, you can use this as a recon to find out the position of that enemy. Mirage was at one point able to send his decoy into Caustic gas and Revenant's tactical to reveal them, but this was ninja nerfed in Season 5 during his rework. And finally, he says that decoys create noise and you can use this to your advantage. For example, you can send a decoy down some metal stairs while you climb a position of height or another angle to get clean shots of the enemy. Blia, the #1 Newcastle, had these tips to share.
Here are 3 crucial tips on how to be an aggressive Newcastle coming from the #1 Newcastle in Apex Legends. First tip is repositioning. If you guys are in a 1v3, 2v3, or 3v3, doesn't matter whatever situation you're in, you can ult on top of opponents to get them the knockback effect. Since Newcastle doesn't have any basically movement abilities except for its ultimate, which doesn't really do that much, you can at least ult on top of opponents so that you can put yourself in 1v1 scenarios. It's a really good strategy if you're trying to split your opponents instead of risking 1v2s and 1v3s. Tip number 2 is when to know how to get high ground. When you're approaching a building or a railroad track or any type of sort of mountain, you can ult onto high ground and it will completely throw off your opponents and catch them off guard. You gotta be careful though, because the cons of ulting on high ground, you do have a little bit of a delay, meaning after you ult, you get stunned, 2-second stun or 1-second stun. So you want to make sure that you ult pretty distant away. Tip number 3 is using Newcastle's tactical shield. One way to use Newcastle's tactical shield, and probably the best way honestly, is using utility. For example, grenades, arc stars, and thermites. I recommend using nades because it's not as noticeable as arc stars and thermites. So a lot of opponents don't really realize that you have thrown a nade, especially in like shaded and dark places. Like if you're throwing down on Newcastle's tactical, it's really hard to see through. So you could throw out a quick nade and they don't even realize. They push you through your tactical, you play around your tactical, force them onto the side that the nade is on, and you'll get an easy kill.
Sheila Not Sorry, or Gyro7, shared the following tips. They said that Rampart is a defense character. She can lock buildings from outside or inside. They sometimes lock and exit before entering the building because sometimes the enemy will try to get out for a heal, but the exit is closed. They've gotten some nice kills out of it. They added that as for Sheila, they mostly use it to third party or to hold the high grounds because the 180 spin buff is amazing. Now that it is mobile and has a faster spin up, it can be used more aggressively. If you want to use Rampart in an offensive way outside of the building, you can be aggressive by setting up a wall before entering that building. They use it this way because if they push to the other side of the building and crack an enemy inside, they tend to run to that door to heal, but because the door is locked, they panic and you can get a free knock. Basically, set a trap. They said that if you crack the enemy shield and they start running to a door and start healing, you can set up a wall first and then use a Sheila to break through it. Sometimes the enemy just stands there watching you ramp up Sheila and they get killed because of that. On the open areas, just try rotating a bit if the enemy keeps destroying the wall, and if you set up the wall, don't just stand behind them. Try moving around so that the enemy shoots you instead of the wall as it's being set up. If you don't have the Sheila ability available and the enemy is healing behind the door, just set up a wall and break the door with a melee at the same time the wall is being set up, so the wall should be up when the door breaks for cover. Amped walls can be used for super gliding. You can also use the amped walls to reach high grounds on buildings or to climb faster. You can also use amped walls to cover you from Bangalore's airstrike, and you can block arc stars and the frag radius damage by placing the wall. This was initially removed, but since they buffed the walls with more health when you place them, you can now block a full blast. Revengeful, the #1 Revenant, had the following tips to share.
With Revenant, the secret to winning a lot of gunfights is just simply landing your silence. In a fight, when I'm about to push somebody, I just run up to him, slide jump, silence, and then spray him down. And it's like a flashbang, so I like to kind of think of it as that. In close fights, you want to land your silence, and then it's also good to focus certain legends with it, like Wraiths, Risens, Valks, and once you hit them with it, you kind of see that they start to panic, so that's another really good thing. So you definitely want to land your silences. With Revenant and his passive, you don't want to fight in the open. That's never a good idea. Play around cover, play around buildings, climb things, get nasty angles. Don't be in the open. He's a big hitbox and has no mobility to escape. So you want to play around things and, you know, not be caught out. With Revenant's totem, Do not use it in the open. That's just inviting third parties and, you know, inviting people to camp it. The way I like to use it, and the best way, is to use it near buildings, either for aggressive or defensive. So if there's people in the building, I want to place it near the building and push in the building. That's the aggressive way. If you want to do it defensive, your team is already in the building, you want to place it in the building and push out. Never use it in the open. Those are the two best ways to use totem right there.
Kachinsu, who's the number 1 on Valkyrie, said the following. When you're using your ultimate, you want to look at the gauge at the left. Try to stay at 140 to 130 miles per hour to go farther. He says you want to use the cursor on the middle of your screen to guide where you will go. He also says a rank tip is that you can use your ultimate to sniff out rats in the end game. When you're about to land off a gravity cannon or a high fall, you can activate your jetpack to get 0 fall stun. He adds when entering a fight, you can use your rocket to stun enemies and create a small window for an easy kill. If you crouch and hit the door perfectly in the middle, you can break it and hit the enemy behind the door, which again is a free kill. He says, me personally, that he likes to get his enemies in a position so he can stun 1 or 2 of them, knock 1, then fly up somewhere, reset, drop back down, and finish up. He also says that if you go high enough, you can shoot your rockets right below you. The number 1 Vantage player, which also happens to be Forget That, again, has the following to say about Vantage.
It was okay. I don't need a bat. Check me my help. I kicked him. Play it safe. I'm gonna queue up.
Echo's got an angle. Moving there.
I'm going up.
Echo's got an angle. Moving there.
What? I'm just gonna go up top on the wheel. Just stay in.
Stay inside.
Switching it up.
I can climb up right now.
Yeah,
I'm
go.
climbing.
Just try and hide with that shiny tag on you.
They're both marked. I got it.
And as for the number 1 Wraith, the highest I could find was a prize. Because I couldn't reach the 1st, 2nd, or the 3rd ranked one, but we got a prize. It was also the first player to get 100,000 kills on Wraith.
Honestly, I don't know any tips for Wraith right now. Because I just don't play Wraith, because I don't find any use in her in like rank, at least. I find more use playing Fuse than I do playing Wraith now. Wraith is just like a for fun pick.
We started the process of making this video at the start of September this year, and at the time of recording, we're in the middle of December. So combining the efforts of over 25 people has proven difficult. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, maybe leave a like, and if you want to learn more Legend specific tips, check out the video on the screen. Make sure to stream off-stream podcasts, and of course, I'll see you all tomorrow.